Welcome grade 7s. We're going to look at 3.2 comparing and ordering fractions and decimals today. So we had fractions and decimals being compared in 3.1, but now we're going to start putting them on the number line and using different strategies such as benchmarks, common denominators, and decimals to order them from least to greatest or greatest to least. So I want to highlight first, we've got three strategies we're going to look at today. We've got benchmarks, common denominators, and decimals. Right here I have 3.2. You should have that open with you now. You can have it in your textbook, or if you have a printed copy from class, or you can get it on Edsby or on the class blog. If you're at home and you're going, oh shoot, I forgot my homework, you can grab it now. First, we're going to look at how benchmarks can be used. Now when I say benchmarks, I want to show you up here. And so we're going to zoom in and out a few times, but we're going to take a look over here now. Benchmarks are like this. It's really easy to figure out where the halfway marks between numbers are. Halves are benchmarks. And quarters between those are also really easy to find. We're doing a rough approximate. But usually you can use these benchmarks to try to figure out where you should put something. So for example, here we have 0, half, and 1, compare fractions. If I want to find 3/20ths or 11/20ths, I start using benchmarks to figure it out. Let's go 11/20ths. Half of 20 is 10. So I figure 11/20ths would be really close to half between 0 and 1, but probably just over the side. It'd be right about here. That's using a benchmark to figure out where to put a fraction. Now let's take a look at some of our examples. First, we've got a problem here. It says, Dusan, Sasha, and Kimberly sold chocolate bars as a fundraiser for the choir. The bars were packaged in cartons and sold individually. Dusan sold 2 2/3. We have Sasha selling 5 halves, and we have Kimberly selling 2.25. And the question is, who sold the most? We'll come back to this and figure out who we think sold the most in the sale. But first, let's look at a few examples. Here we have benchmarks. Benchmarks are, like I said, halves, quarters, easy to find, and you use them to find where to put these numbers. Now, these are hard to see, but I trust that you already have a copy with you. I'm just going to make sure that our number line is in the shot. Perfect. So, we've got 2 11ths, 2 3/8, 1 and 1/16, 14 over 9, and 14 over 15. But this person starts reasoning, well, 2 11ths is close to 0. So they said if this is split into 11ths, 2 11ths would be really close to 0. We're going to put that there. 2 11ths. This says 3/8. This person's trying to figure out 3/8 because there's 2 and 3/8. 3/8 is close to half, but it's less than half. So let's go 2 and 3/8. 2, and they said 3/8 is close to half, but less than half. Let's put that there. 2 and 3/8 is close to 2.5, but less than 2.5. 2.5, but less than 2.5. There's 2 and 3/8. 1 and 1/16 is close to 1, but greater. Well, sure. If 1 is split into 16 parts, then 1 and just 1/16 would be just a little more, for sure. So this person is reasoning it out one step at a time. Let's take a look at what else they have. 14 over 9 is like 9 over 9 plus 5 over 9, or 1 and 5/9. So they changed this improper fraction to a mixed number, 1 and 5/9. Well, if I think 1 and 5/9, so I know it's between 1 and 2, 5/9. What's half of 9? I think it's 4.5. So that would mean 1.5. That's like 4.5/9. Just a little bit more. 1 and 5/9. Let's see, 14 over 15. Well, 15 over 15 would be 1, bang on. So I'm thinking 14 out of 15 is probably really close to 1. Because if I cut this into 15 parts and had 14 of them, 14 over 50. You gotta love the sound effects. Sorry, I don't know, can't stop doing it. Now we have our numbers ordered from greatest to least. I just have to read them. 2 and 3/8, 1 and 5/9, 1 and 1/16, 14 over 15, and 2/11. That's an order from greatest to least. So what we did is we used benchmarks. Benchmarks are half and quarter points, and then we just talk about the fraction, trying to figure out where should we put that gap. Then it gives us another one. It says, write these numbers from least to greatest. But when you first look, I don't know, it's kind of hard to figure out. It says 7 over 8, 9 over 8, 1 and 1/4, and 0.75. 0.75. Well, let me show you a way that we can do this. We're going to zoom in on the lower part of my board. There we go. We have 7/8, 9/8, 1 1/4, 0.75. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do the second strategy, the common denominators. I'm going to convert these to common denominators. Well, first, I don't have all fractions, so let's change that. 0.75, that's like 3/4. Now, if you look at this, you can see that we can start changing these so that the bottoms are the same. I think I should probably put that, maybe I'll make that into a mixed number first, just to make it easy. Or I mean, an improper fraction, a not mixed number. Let's see, 1 is worth 4/4 plus 1 more quarter is 5/4. There we go. Now I need to make these denominators the same. Well, I know 2 times 4 is 8. So you know what? I could go times 2, times 2, times 2, times 2. That'll turn these into 8s, but I have to do top and bottom always same. So let's bring it up here. We're running out of room here. There we go. Those look really easy to put in order now. Let's try it out. Let's see, 6 over 8, 7 over 8, 9 over 8, 10 over 8. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Of course, I might want to simplify if possible, or maybe even put them back in original order, because what it originally asked me for was to make these from, I believe, least to greatest. And so now we see that 0.75 was the least. We see that the next greatest was 7 over 8, then 9 over 8, and then there was a 10 over 8, which was originally 1 and 1/4. And that is our answer. So we've now used strategy number 2, common denominators. Pardon my supreme camera work here. There we are. Now let's go to the third one, decimals. Let's just turn these puppies into decimals. So now I'm going to erase what we have here, and we're going to start with a fresh list. We're going to start turning them into decimals so we can compare them that way. Now when you do your quizzes, you will notice that you may like using benchmarks, you may like using common denominators, or you may like using decimals. So here we go. It says, oh, we're not quite to the example. Let's go down a little further. Here we go. It says we can also use place value to order those decimals. So let's go back to our original list. It had originally asked which one was the greatest, or least to greatest, my bad. So let's see, we're trying to figure out which one's least to greatest, but this time we're going to use decimals. Well, how do I turn that into a decimal? One way I can do this is I can read it that 7 is like 7 divided into 8, or cut into 8 pieces. Let's just zoom in there. There we go. And so I'm going to grab my trusty calculator here, and I'm going to go 7 divided by 8, 7 over 8. And what I get is 0.875. So if I turn that into a decimal, it becomes this. Now I'll do that with the 9. 9 divided by 8. This time I'm getting 1.125. 1 1/4. Well, I know 1 decimal and I know a quarter is 0.25. And then this one's already a decimal. And once again, it becomes pretty easy to put in order. Let's see. That is more than this, and those are greater than 1. So 0.75 and 0.875. Which one is bigger? Let's see. 1.1, 1.2. I think 1.1. There we have our answer, although we may convert back to the original. So we have 3 strategies. 1, benchmarks. That's where we have the number line, find the halves and the quarters, and we reason out where to put each thing. 2, we had common denominators. We turned them all into fractions, made sure that the bottom numbers were all the same. 3, and the final strategy, decimals. We used our calculator so that each fraction would be the numerator divided by the denominator to turn it into a decimal, and then we would order them using place value. Which strategy you use, it's up to you in certain places. We all have certain tendencies, but I hope that one of these 3 strategies will be helpful for you, and that's how you do 3.2 in your textbook.